Hey, GW coming to you live on the eve of Easter Sunday. And, guys, I just watched one of the most powerful, gut wrenching, heart wrenching movies you will ever see, probably this year. And I'm talking about the wrestling biopic Sean Durkin's The Iron Claw. Now, if you guys don't know anything about this, or you've been hiding under a rock, or you just generally don't know anything about, wrestling in general, this is a story about the Von Erich family. Now, the Von Erich family is considered one of the greatest families in the history of pro wrestling. And that might not mean much to you. You might gloss over the, cheesy showmanship and theatrics of pro wrestling, but this is more of a biographical, said that right, tale of what was considered the Von Erich family curse. And the movie is about the tragic events that surrounded the Von Erich family, and it's pretty gut wrenching. And it actually has an all-star cast, guys. It has Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, that's my man, Harris Dickinson, Maureen Tierney, Stanley Simmons, and Holt McCallany, and Lily James. The story basically centers around Kevin Von Erich, who was the oldest brother of the four Von Erich brothers. Now there was more, but when you look at when you read about this movie, you'll find out that a lot of footage was cut. In fact, AEW superstar MJF was supposed to have a cameo in this as a cousin Von Erich, but somehow it made the cutting room floor. I guess it wasn't substantial enough. But the curse and the tragic events that happen in this movie are enough to bring you to tears, because it's shot in a way where wrestling is secondary, right, to the curse and the tragic events that surrounded the family. And that's what I liked. It wasn't pushing wrestling in your face, but it was there as a sidebar sort of deal. On that note, wrestling enthusiasts or fans will be happy to know that Ric Flair is in the film, and the actor that plays him is pretty good, actually. Tommy Wildfire Rich is in the film, the Freebirds, but they're a one match or two match deal, so they don't get a lot of screen time. Bruiser Brody is actually in the film, or an actor that plays Bruiser Brody. Let me readjust that. He's in the movie, does quite well, from what I know. Also, another wrestler that appears in the movie, and the actor is pretty good, is Harley Race. The guy that plays Harley Race, to me, was pretty spot on from what I know, even though he was featured in maybe 3 minutes of screen time. Very, very cool. But it's directed by Sean Durkin, as I said, and it just came out, and it's probably on Amazon Prime. This thing was a very, very popular movie, but I think it had a limited release, I believe. Now, one of the standouts is most people who know wrestling know Kerry Von Erich. Or when you Google up the family curse, he's one of the most recognizable of the family, and he's played by Jeremy Allen White. And Jeremy Allen White does a hell of a good job portraying him. And there's things that I don't know. And I used to love wrestling. I grew up watching wrestling with my dad. And, we watched Saturday Night's Main Event. We watched, all the pay-per-views. In fact, the first WrestleMania I saw was number 3. I rented that. He wanted to watch it. We'd never seen it. And then we watched WrestleMania 4. So we just kind of missed the Kerry Von Erich era. And he was known as the Texas Tornado. But we did watch a lot of AWA in the house. It was on, and I think the Von Erichs were pretty much in there. WCCW, World Class Championship Wrestling, which is featured in the movie. So I grew up, around that type of thing. That and, horror movies on 53 and 22 on a thing called Scream Theater, but that's a story for another day. But anyway, the curse, when you start to read about it and read about this family, is amazingly tragic. But first of all, before I get into some of the events that happened in this movie, the acting is top notch. Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, you know, Harris Dickinson, they all do a phenomenal job. From what I've seen on YouTube videos about, you know, the real people, to replicating that with these actors is just very, very, very well done. I can't really say too much bad things about it, except for when it comes to certain events. They sort of lead you up to the event, skip over the event, and then you see the aftermath, which it works. It really does. And I think if you put some of these elements that they cut out of the film, it would be a lot more tragic, darker, and I don't know if anybody could watch it. Or maybe they took it out because of test screenings, but who knows? The bottom line is this is a very, very emotional driven movie because you feel for the characters. Especially if you didn't know much about them and you watched it play out. I mean, it's one thing after another, and you're going, my God, wow. Just a few things that happened in the Von Erich curse. The younger brother, David Von Erich, in real life went to go wrestle over in Japan. And he was played by Harris. What did I say that guy's name was? Harris Dickinson. He went over to wrestle in Japan. And this is in real life. He went over to wrestle in Japan. He was staying in his hotel room and died. His intestines broke open. And shocking. He was supposed to fight Flair for the world title and, you know, finally bring some honor back to the Von Erich household. And then that just starts spiraling down. Now, they did gloss over one major tragedy. A young Von Erich, I forget the name, guys. You're going to have to forgive me. But a young kid got electrocuted, and they gloss over it in the film. But you see it toward the end. You see the victim at the end, and they make a little reference to it. Kerry Von Erich, he commits suicide, as well as Stanley Simmons' character. So there was a few suicides. Kerry Von Erich was in a bad motorcycle accident. They lead you up to it, and then they, like I said, they jump over it. And watching Jeremy Allen White hop around without a foot, I mean, he does a phenomenal job. The kid should get an Academy Award. But overall, even if you don't like wrestling, this is a story of trying to overcome tragedy when another tragedy hits. If you're looking for, you know, sort of a meaning in that. What I really liked about it is it didn't start off with a bang. It let you get accustomed to these characters. You got to know them a little bit. And then, you know, you see the tragedy. And it makes you, it's more powerful because then it draws you in and it makes you emotional. The wrestling angle of it is done very well. And you got to remember, this whole sort of timeline takes place in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. So wrestling was a little bit different than what you're going to turn on and watch on, you know, Collision tonight. Or, you know, SmackDown or Raw, for that matter. It was more about less theatrics and more about, you know, who's the best. Speaking of who's the best, in this movie, their real dad, Fritz Von Erich, is played by Holt McCallany. Did I say that? McCallany. And everything that I've read about him, his character, the real guy was one of those guys that pushed harder than he should, you know, was tougher than he should, didn't give an inch, and basically said, if you ain't the best, you ain't shit. His character's done really well. In fact, I didn't know this actor that I just mentioned. This Holt McCallany. But I thought the whole time I'm watching the preview, I'm like, that dude looks like Dolph Lundgren. But it's not. But it could be a body double for him. So when you add all these elements up, by the way, opposite Fritz is his wife, played by Mara Tierney. She's wonderful. She's given a little bit of words, but she doesn't really have to speak. She basically wears emotion on her face, so she doesn't have much dialogue in the film, maybe about 15 minutes tops, if that. But again, it does a really good job of conveying the tragedy that befell this family. And this is probably going to get, a lot of awards. If it don't, I don't know what's going on. But it's grounded in reality, and that's what I like about the film. It's not outrageously, fight after fight after fight. It's more fight, tragedy. Let's have somebody else, jump in, another brother, another tragedy happens, bing, bang, boom. But if you go on YouTube and start looking this up, it is amazing what this family has dealt with as far as, I keep saying the word tragedies, but a bad circumstance of events. So the movie itself, if you don't know anything about the Von Erichs, is good. It's a good reference point to watch. It's going to bring you to tears. The acting is very stellar. The storyline could have used a little bit more substance, but I understand why they glossed over some events. But it is a very, very powerful movie. Very good film. Very well done acted. And the other thing I want to mention is that, for an R-rated film, this movie actually has, maybe a little bit of blood. But I think they rated it R for the suicide and the tragic nature of the events. There's only a handful, I can count on my hand, maybe 5 profanities that are in this film. So it's, I think that's what they're doing. I think they're rating films because of suicide. In fact, when we watched A Man Called Otto, the first thing that it said was, this film depicts graphic implications of suicide or something like that. So the ratings board must be hitting on that as well. But overall, very powerful, a very good portrait of tragedy after tragedy after tragedy that really makes you feel for this family, really makes you wonder, and especially if you don't know anything about it. But I want to reiterate, this is not a wrestling movie. This is about people that are wrestlers and the real tragic events that happen around them. So the wrestling is secondary, as I said. So if you're not, if you don't care about Ric Flair, or you don't care about the Freebirds, you don't care whatever, biographically, this thing is still pretty awesome. And it's done very well. It's not done on the cheap. There is substance. In fact, yesterday I was watching a YouTube video about this movie. About the events, the real events. And it's shocking as to what happened. Really, I can't say anything that people aren't already going to say, but this is one of the more powerful films that I have seen. This is actually a very well done movie. It's amazing, and the acting is top notch. Very, very top notch. And it's done on a pretty decent budget, it looks like. So if you're looking for something, to watch on a rainy day, or you're very interested in the Von Erich family curse, I suggest you watch this. Jump onto YouTube. There's a Dark Side of the Ring episode where it actually explores this. I suggest you guys check it out. But it was very good. It's 2 hours and 17 minutes, and I didn't find a minute of it boring. I was just stunned in my seat. And that rarely happens to me watching movies, because I'm the man. Anyway, I want to thank a couple of my fans at work who said, what's up to me. Casey, Emily, Connor, Peyton, my man Justin Mays. My man Justin Mays has his own custard place. I'm going to get some info and I'm going to give him some props on my channel because he's a good guy, very friendly, very cool. And I think that, he's someone that, you guys would like to know. So I'm going to get the info on that for you. I'm going to give him a prop. I'm going to tell you where it is. I'm actually going to try to get some contact info. So if you guys want custard or whatever, I'll give him a call, see what's up. But let me do that. I just want to say thanks to everybody, and guys, if you're in town, check out Annandale Station. They have one of the best friendly atmospheres I've ever been in, and all of them are great up there. There's Nadia, Aiden, Kylie, all of them rock, and I'm glad to be up there, and every time I am, they serve you with a smile, and they're pretty great. So definitely check them out. And to all my fans, or just people that watch us in general, I just want to say Happy Easter. Hope you guys have a good one. GW, peace.